Hi, I'm Paul. With this video, I'm just going to start off with trying to answer a question that I had, and it brought something to mind that I wanted to share, but it was probably too much to put in a message, so just thought I'd add it into this video. And what came to mind when I was asked this question was something that I came across about a year ago. I bumped into somebody who was quite obviously seeking, trying to find the truth. But the way that he was doing it was by seeking outwards. He was always talking about conspiracy theories, how the government have lied and how we're all being misled, and maybe a lot of this is true. It's fine. But I did notice that he was displaying anger towards this and disgust, which is acceptable. But what I noticed was both anger and disgust are the two main emotions of the left hemisphere. So he was essentially seeking to try and find the truth, but without realizing it, he was just strengthening his ego. Firstly, he was seeking the truth because his ego was starting to show cracks, so he was losing his sense of reality and trying to rebuild that by seeking outwards. But like I say, this is just using the left hemisphere of the brain, and it's very, very important to start using the right hemisphere, but it's quite hard to cross over into the right hemisphere. Like I say, the emotions of the left hemisphere is anger and disgust. The emotions of the right hemisphere is love and acceptance. But for this person I bumped into, like I say, he was becoming quite obsessive, trying to answer all these questions from outside, and I found it very difficult to try to get him to turn around and look inside of himself. I think this is a time when I came up with this phrase of the Garden of Eden is hidden behind a door in the back of a closet. But first, to get to that, you have to face the demons you've kept locked away. And the demons aren't so much things that you've done. They're more like a guard dog in front of a door, just stopping you from seeing what's behind the door. In a sense, we could say this is the left and the right hemisphere is connected together by the corpus callosum, and the corpus callosum has inhibitors to stop signals crossing over. So we could say this guard dog is like having the inhibitors in the corpus callosum, which is stopping you go to the right hemisphere, which is keeping you seeking outwards, keep going. But when you do try to find, let's say, peace, then you need to start turning inwards. It's the only way. I think there is a pretty well-known phrase, the only way out is in. So you need to start turning within and looking at not so much thoughts, but more beliefs. Because a lot of us have these beliefs that we just don't even look at a question. We just take for granted. I don't know, let's look at the idea of hell, heaven and hell. So a lot of people just say, well, hell is a place you go to when you die if you've been bad. And a lot of people believe this, and they will argue against you, but a lot of people also haven't put their own thought into it. So you don't question it, you just say it, because that's what's always been kind of told to you. When you really look into it, there's absolutely nothing in the Bible, or should I say the original Bible before translated, nothing whatsoever to do with hell, nothing that describes hell. Nothing that describes the place where you go to after you die. In fact, it's quite well described in the Bible that whoever you are, whatever you've done, when you die, you're in the same place. I think it was just that when we translated the Bible into English, I think we translated 4 words into the word hell and came up with hell. But the point is here is we quite often just stick with our beliefs without questioning them, and the idea of the only way out is in, is to start looking in and questioning our beliefs, not our thoughts, our beliefs. So anyway, that's what came to mind when I heard the question. I've also been through this. I studied psychology for, don't know, maybe 3 years-ish, but I actually studied proper psychology, as in reading it up and learning it. And what I found was there was no way out. I just kept going round and round in circles, learning something different and then something different and then something different, but I never got out of it. It was only when I decided to drop learning psychology and try to understand what I knew and try to understand how people are around me, then I found a way out and started to find answers, and then things became easier. And anyway, moving on from that, some of the other things that people have been talking about in messages and stuff is about trying to get rid of the self, the I. It doesn't exist in the first place, or trying to get rid of thoughts. Thoughts don't really exist. And whenever I talk about this, people seem to jump from one thing to another, that thoughts aren't real, so we need to entirely get rid of them. But there really is a place in the middle, and the thoughts aren't the thing that you essentially need to get rid of. We look at it like the innocence of a child. You see, children think all the time, and that's not wrong. It's kind of right. In fact, children's thoughts flow like a river in perfect harmony. So let's say you take a child somewhere new, like I like the Lake District. So let's say you take a child up to the lakes and they come across this mountain in the distance and they're not so familiar with mountains, then they're going to look at the mountain and say things like, I wonder if there's dinosaurs still on that mountain, or wow, that bit of the mountain is fantastic. And they're having constant thoughts. And these thoughts are flowing like a river, which is perfect. But as adults, we put dams in the river. We try to change the flow of the river. We can put some dams in to narrow the flow. We can put some dams in to block it, some dams in to make that deeper. The point what I'm making is, it's not about the thoughts that we have. It's the way that we react to the thoughts. I don't like that thought. I never had that thought. No, I would never have thoughts like that. Or I like that thought. That's how it should be. That's how it shouldn't be. So the idea is not about so much getting rid of the thoughts. Let the thoughts flow. They're perfect. The idea is stop judging them. It's the person there, the I, that's making the decisions, that's trying to change the thoughts, that's trying to say what you should have. That was a horrible word. So, yeah, it's the I that's trying to deny, I suppose. Because if you get a thought, even if it's a negative thought, the truth is you got a thought. It was negative, but if you're going to deny that thought, then that's not what happened. The thought happened, it definitely happened, but you're just going to deny it or change it or pretend that you never meant that, I meant this. And like I say, with children, their thoughts just flow from one into another. In some ways, we can kind of say, yeah, but children are psychotic. They can look at a mountain and say, I wonder if there's dinosaurs on that, and so on. And we could kind of say, yeah, but children aren't quite human yet. We need to beat this human stuff into them. We need to shape them and mold them until finally they turn into what we would call humans. In other words, until we've managed to beat into them an ego where inside their own head they judge themselves and saying, I should have them thoughts, I shouldn't have them thoughts, that was silly, and so on. Another thing that seems to get mentioned a few times is when I talk about everything is perfect. I mean, this shouldn't be taken quite exactly literal. What I'm trying to point to here is that it's only perfect because that's how it is. So if something happens, you have a thought or someone says something to you, negative or positive, then that is what's happened. And that's why it's perfect. You should just accept it for what it is. But if you don't accept it for what it is, then you're saying inside of you, yeah, well, they're saying that, but it's not true, it's not right, or they shouldn't have said that. It's basically your ego trying to change reality. It's trying to say, yeah, but I don't like that, what happened. And that's the resistance to whatever it is. So it's like saying a resistance to suffering. What happens is just what happens. And accepting that that's how it is accepting the suffering, and the suffering doesn't last. It's only when you argue against it, resist the suffering, that the suffering persists. So when I say everything's perfect, it doesn't mean that you have to tell yourself, well, yeah, that's perfect and that's perfect. It just means you've got to accept that it is in each moment. In non-duality, we talk a lot about the only thing that exists is the now. No future and there's no past, and that's what this is pointing to. So if something happens, that's perfect because that's what's happened. But when you try to dismiss or argue against it, that's not what's happened. That's not the now. That's the now pretending to be something else. I agree. But the point is just live in the now and accept everything exactly as it is. When you accept everything exactly as it is, that's what we call in non-duality unconditional love. Just the acceptance of the now perfectly as it is. Anyway, I think I've finished waffling now, so thanks very much for listening.